Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed, lab-proven to work fast, and proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
This is a Dynamite Network podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And in this episode, Abomination is going to beat the ever-loving shit out of Bizarro, and I'm going to laugh about it. It's going to be funny to me. I'm going to listen back to this episode and have a swell-ass time.
Dude, you are never going to learn your lesson, are you? DC's just better. Learn.
I'm putting positive energy out there from the get-go for Marvel, okay?
Because you feel you need it?
No, because it's just good to have positive energy for Marvel. And it goes out into the universe, and then it's going to come back to me when we reveal the results after running the simulations on these characters.
Well, I guess we'll see.
I'm manifesting it in my brain.
In your butthole.
That too. Join us later on this episode as we input the character stats and find out who would actually win in a fight between these two characters. Before that matchup, we're going to break down the latest comic book movie news to come out this past week, of which we have two news items, and that was that The Penguin won 9 Emmy Awards. And actually on the comic book news side, we're going to discuss the Deadpool Batman crossover issue. We're not going to give spoilers away. We're just going to talk about what was inside of it and what we thought of it.
Yeah, looking forward to that. We never talk about comics, but we figured this is a special occasion. But as always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
Our artificially intelligent duel simulator, AJ9K, has a quick message for our listeners, so listen up.
Why, hello there. Do you want even more from this podcast? Then become a part of the Dynamic Duel community on Patreon, where you can choose from 3 tiers. The Dynamic 2.0 tier gives you access to our Discord chat server, the Fantastic 4 tier gives you 2 bonus episodes each month, and the X-Force tier makes you an executive producer of this show. Lastly, the Dynamite Podcast Network tier lets you create your own podcast using this Monte Carlo simulator. Johnny and Joe will help you develop your show, provide graphic support and consultation, and get you simulation results. Pitch the twins your ideas via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. Check it out at patreon.com/dynamicduel. Pip pip cheerio.
Thanks, AJ9K, and thanks to everyone who supports the podcast. Be sure to tune into the other shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network this week, including the Console Combat Podcast, where hosts John and Dean simulate battles between popular video game characters. In yesterday's episode, they reviewed Season 2 of Twisted Metal.
Over on the Max Destruction podcast, hosts Scotty and Gilly pit your favorite action heroes from film and television against each other. On Wednesday, they're going to find out who would win between Michael Jordan of Space Jam and LeBron James of Space Jam: A New Legacy.
And on the Syndro World podcast, host Zachary Hepburn speculates on fights between fan-favorite anime and manga characters. In his next episode, Zach is revealing who would win between Whitebeard and Kenpachi, both from One Piece.
Visit dynamicpodcasts.com or click the link in our show notes to listen to all the shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network. But with that out of the way,
quick to the no prize! A No Prize is an award that Marvel used to give out to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award we post on Instagram for the person that we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. And just a heads up, I am way behind on posting these No Prizes to Instagram. I've been busy with work, but slowly trying to catch up.
At this point, you're going to spend the rest of your life catching up.
Maybe. Yeah. I suck. I know. All right.
Last week, we asked you guys, besides Marvel and DC, what is your favorite film franchise of all time and why? And that's coming off of the Variety report on current film franchises that we discussed last week. We got 5 answers, so let's run down our honorable mentions as well as the No Prize winner.
Our first honorable mention goes to Alex Albro, who said,
Hey guys, my favorite franchise of all time is Star Wars. Probably more so than Marvel and DC, to be honest. Caveat though, it's pre-Disney. There's been a few things that Disney's put out that are okay, but I really prefer the George Lucas stuff. So much so I can quote the movies to you pretty much without watching them. I've read a lot of the lore and legends books, as they're called now. Even in 5th grade for a writing assignment, I wrote about a 20-ish page script for episode 7 because it had yet to come out. So just based on head knowledge and canon, so...
Yeah, I feel like I used to be a fan of Star Wars until Disney ruined it. Like, they ruin everything they touch.
I thought your favorite Star Wars movie was Rogue One, which was produced after the Disney acquisition.
Is that true? Shit.
Yes. Mandalorian's great. Rogue One was great. I will put out a controversial take out there. I actually liked The Last Jedi.
Brother, ew! Why, brother? Ew.
I really like the end of that movie when Luke Skywalker went all badass on Kylo Ren, you know? He like force projected himself over the galaxy. I thought that was a really cool moment. It was everything I wanted to see in a badass Luke Skywalker Jedi moment. I know that, you know, that story didn't even come close to touching what was in the novels, though.
Oh, yeah, with like Mara Jade and their son and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They should have just went with that.
Did not like Force Awakens and thought Rise of Skywalker was pretty meh. I feel like everybody has an opinion on Star Wars, though. So, like, basically nobody is going to agree with my 3 takes right there.
Oh, yeah, I've gotten flack for saying that Rogue One is the best Star Wars movie, even though I'm right. Great answer, Alex. Our next honorable mention goes to Kaio, who said,
Hi, guys. My favorite film franchise has to be The Hunger Games because they have really good characters, and I love the world that the author Suzanne Collins built. And the movies are really good, so I cannot recommend them enough if you haven't seen them. But yeah, that's my answer. Thank you.
Yeah, my daughter is a huge fan of the Hunger Game franchise. She's read all of the books. I've seen the movies multiple times because she has. I didn't love the first one when I saw it in the theaters because I thought it was kind of anticlimactic and Katniss was kind of passive when it comes to heroism. But the later films I thought were actually really good. I'm a huge fan of the director, Francis Lawrence, who also directed Constantine.
I've only seen the first Hunger Games movie, which I thought was decent enough. And I just went on living my life and not seeing the other ones. Is that a mistake?
Yeah, you should watch them. They're not bad.
I'm just going to continue living on my life, I think.
Okay. Great answer, Kaio. Our final honorable mention goes to Lorenzo Valdez, who said,
Besides DC and Marvel, my all-time favorite film franchise is The Wizarding World. I love coming-of-age stories, and much like with DC and Marvel, it was a huge part of my childhood. Clowna forever and always, bye-bye.
Okay, so my wife is a huge fan of the Harry Potter series. She grew up with the books and the movies, and before I met her, I'd only seen the first Harry Potter, and I thought it sucked. And it still does suck. To this day, it is my least favorite Harry Potter film. And then I went and watched the rest of those films, and they got progressively darker and progressively more mature, and I really got into them by the last few films. So yeah, I'm a big fan too.
So I've only seen like the first 2 movies. I watched them, and then I kind of just went on living my life.
Yeah.
Is that a mistake?
Yeah, I would say that's a mistake because the latter stories get really like thematic and existential and dark, like dark as hell, like depressingly dark. Even I was surprised just at how like depressed these kids get.
I'll probably just end up living my life.
I'll watch Hunger Games if you finish watching the Harry Potter movies, and we'll come to a consensus on which franchise is better.
How is that even fair? There's way more Harry Potter movies. Ain't nobody got time for that.
There's only like 6 of them.
Including the Fantastic Beasts movies.
Oh, yeah. The first Fantastic Beasts movie was okay. I didn't like the latter 2, though. But yeah, you got to watch those two. Great answer, Lorenzo. But the winner of this week's No Prize is actually split between two people who gave the same answer, and that would be CJ Kraft and Brandon Estergaard, who said,
Hey guys, CJ Kraft here, and my favorite film franchise of all time, without question, is The Evil Dead, because it's groovy, duh. And Ash has actually been in the Marvel comics and Marvel Zombies, where he was eaten by my favorite Marvel character, Howard the Duck, only for the real Ash to come in and kill that Howard the Duck. If that's not awesome enough to warrant being the best, I don't know what is.
Hey guys, besides DC or Marvel, I'm a huge horror movie fan, and my favorite horror movie franchise is the Evil Dead series. They do start off pretty campy with the first ones, the Sam Raimi ones, and then the intensity just dials up to a fucking 11 with Fede Alvarez's, and then to a 20 with Lee Cronin's. So yeah, favorite franchise of all time.
yeah, I've seen about half of the Evil Dead movies, and I'll agree that they are damn solid. The Sam Raimi films are campy. I haven't seen Army of Darkness because I heard that it wasn't that scary, but I'll definitely have to check it out at some point. And I haven't seen the latest one, Evil Dead Rises, yet because, I don't know, it looked really scary. And so I'm kind of just like waiting for a time when I'm ready to be that scared. Probably around this Halloween.
The only Evil Dead movie I've seen is the original Sam Raimi one. I haven't seen the sequels to that, like Army of Darkness or anything like that, although I've heard they're pretty good and pretty much cult classics. I basically refuse to see the new ones after seeing the Red Band trailer for the Fede Alvarez directed one. F that.
Yeah, they're pretty gruesome, for sure.
But I'm glad you guys like them. So congrats on the win, both CJ and Brandon.
If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news. Okay, last week, actress Kristen Milioti, who played Sofia Falcone in the Penguin television series for HBO Max, won the Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Limited or Anthology Series or Movie, which is awesome. Of course, the Emmys, if you're not familiar with them, are essentially like the Oscars for television. It is the most prestigious award that television creators can receive. And the Penguin won 9 of them. 9. How many Emmys did Marvel win this past year? 0. They won 0 to 9. Feel bad, Marvel fans. Feel real bad. Of the 9 Emmys, the Penguin also won for costumes, for hairstyling, for makeup, for prosthetic makeup, for music composition, for sound editing, sound mixing, and outstanding special visual effects. Which, again, suck it, Marvel, with your Agatha All-Alongs and your Echoes and X-Men 97s.
Oh, I'm sorry, were you saying something? I wasn't really paying attention.
Yeah, you wouldn't be, because you know it.
This is a boring story,
sucks.
man, okay? This is a boring story. You're talking about the Emmys or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess those are cool. I am a little bit bummed that X-Men 97 did not win Outstanding Animated Program, and that Agatha All Along didn't win any awards either. I thought those were 2 really solid shows. But yeah, I mean, if you like Emmys, whatever.
Oh, hell yeah, bro. The Penguin loves its Emmys.
Ew.
It was a fantastic show. We gave it 5 stars when we reviewed it on this podcast.
Yeah, it's pretty good if you like that kind of thing.
There were originally no plans to do a season 2, and it has been stated that Sofia Falcone will not appear in the Batman sequel, but I would love to see more from Kristen Milioti's character, so fingers crossed for The Penguin season 2. Apparently, The Penguin is in HBO's 10 highest rated TV shows of all time, and it deserves to be, because it's awesome.
Oh my god, let's move on to the real news here. Okay? In actual news, this past week, the Deadpool Batman comic book hit stores, and it is the first Marvel DC crossover to happen in probably about 2 decades. I think I can't remember the exact year that JLA Avengers came out, but it was definitely the mid-2000s. And that was a solid run. And of course, it was preceded by the Marvel vs. DC crossover that happened in the mid-90s. Both of those comic book arcs were like multi-issue stories. The Deadpool Batman crossover comic that came out this past week is actually more of a series of one-shots between Marvel and DC characters. The first story, of course, is Deadpool and Batman, and I fucking loved that story. It was basically everything you would ever want in a Deadpool Batman crossover. Deadpool was hilarious. Batman was badass. It was just perfection, the way they pulled that story together. But to my surprise, there were 6 other short stories within that issue. It was a pretty big issue. But following Deadpool Batman, you got a Captain America Wonder Woman crossover, which was pretty good. It kind of treated the Marvel and DC universe as if they were one single universe and explored the relationship between Steve Rogers and Diana Prince. Then there was Jeff the Landshark and Crypto crossover, where the two play catch. There was Daredevil and Green Arrow, which was written by Kevin Smith, the acclaimed film director, who also wrote runs for Green Arrow and Daredevil. There was an arc with Rocket Raccoon and Green Lantern, where Rocket Raccoon gets the Green Lantern ring and Green Lantern gets the Infinity Gauntlet, and kind of explores what would happen there. There was an Old Man Logan and Batman, the Dark Knight Returns version crossover that was written by Frank Miller. And goddamn, that was awful. Frank Miller is just getting so bad at drawing and writing. It was really disappointing, that particular short story. It was only like 2 pages too.
Yeah, it's sad to see. He probably should have quit while he was on top.
Yeah. The final crossover episode kind of revisits the Amalgam universe from the 90s crossover event where Marvel and DC characters fused into single beings. Like you had characters like Dark Claw, who was a merger of Batman and Wolverine. This particular short story focuses on Logo, who is a crossover between Wolverine and Lobo, the bounty hunter. And that is fantastic because he has those chain hook things coming out of his hands, and he could like shoot them out to capture bad guys. It's really badass.
Yeah, gotta love those Amalgam characters.
All in all, well, I have been dying for another full-on crossover event between Marvel and DC. These one-off shorts did satiate my appetite for having the two universes go head-to-head.
And they're not done because the second part of the Batman and Deadpool story will be released in mid-November.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. If you guys haven't picked up the issue yet from your local comic book store, be sure to do that or read it online if you can. If you're a fan of Deadpool or you're a fan of Batman, it's absolutely worth your time, especially since the comic book ties into our question of the week.
What was your favorite story within the Deadpool Batman crossover comic and why? Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message could be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and award that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to Instagram. Be sure to answer before September 27th.
But that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and get into the main event, where we find out who would win in a fight between the Superman villain of Bizarro and the Hulk villain, Abomination. All right, Bizarro versus Abomination. This is, in effect, a Superman versus Hulk matchup, which we have not gotten to yet, but was featured in the 90s crossover event between Marvel and DC. Superman and Hulk fought each other. We're going to riff on that a little bit and go with the villains. And I think this will be a little bit more even, largely because Abomination is stronger than the Hulk and smarter than Savage Hulk, at least. And Bizarro is not as powerful as a regular Superman. So I think everything's going to kind of balance out in the stats.
I don't know if that's fair to say. I would say he's as powerful as Superman, just not as intelligent, unfortunately, in some iterations. But yeah, these are essentially the dark mirror counterparts of the heroes that they battle against. They're both insanely strong, and I'm excited to see who's going to win this.
Abomination, of course, was the main antagonist of the Incredible Hulk film starring Edward Norton, and Emil Blonsky, the Abomination, was played by Tim Roth in that film. We've seen him subsequently in some other projects like Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings and the She-Hulk television series.
And the jury's still out as to whether or not the clone in the Superman movie could be considered Bizarro. But the character has been in live-action shows like Superman and Lois and Smallville, at least. So we're going to find out who's going to win between the two characters. To explain the methodology behind our duels, let's go to our sentient duel simulator, Alfred Jarvis 9000. AJ9K, tell our listeners how you go about determining a winner in our duel matchups.
Yes, of course, sir. The way I determine a winner between the contestants is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations using the character's statistics. A Monte Carlo simulation is a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling. In this case, I randomized the statistics along a normal distribution as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters are based on the official Marvel power grid, from which the DC characters' statistics are extrapolated. Additional stat categories are included such as range, damage potential, versatility, and perception in order to create a more detailed and accurate simulation. The results of the 1,000 simulations provide a percentage of wins for each character. The contestant with the higher percentage is declared the victor, as they have a higher probability to win any given battle. In an equitable pairing, neither character should win 100% of the matches. The comic book stories have shown that there's even a way for Batman to defeat Superman, so the confidence rate of my method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the source material. My mathematical simulations are without subjectivity or bias. Feats are not the sole consideration, nor are fan votes tabulated for determination of the winner.
Thanks, AJ9K. Before we run the simulations, though, we'd like to break down each character's histories and abilities before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the 1,000 simulations would play out beat for beat.
And I believe it's my turn to start off with the DC character, so let me tell you all about Bizarro. The original Bizarro was created during an experiment by Professor Dalton, a visiting scientist at Smallville High School who was demonstrating a duplication ray that he invented. When the ray was accidentally fired at Superboy, it produced a flawed, imperfect duplicate. The duplicate had chalk-white skin, exaggerated features, and distorted logic, interpreting speech and morality in opposites. Confused and unintentionally dangerous, this Bizarro roamed Smallville, causing destruction despite believing he was doing good. Ultimately, he sacrificed himself to save a blind girl named Melissa, whose sight was restored moments before his death. Years later, a new Bizarro emerged when Lex Luthor recreated the duplicator ray and used it on Superman. This new Bizarro, possessing all of Superman's powers but twisted in mind and morality, became obsessed with being Superman's equal. Speaking in opposites and seeing heroism through a backward lens, Bizarro caused chaos in Metropolis in his attempts to help. He eventually created a Bizarro duplicate of Lois Lane and traveled to a cube-shaped Bizarro world that he made, known as Hitre, or Earth spelled backwards, where everything operated under reversed logic. He founded the Bizarro Justice League and ruled Hitre with Bizarro Lois, enforcing nonsensical laws and making everything imperfect or ugly. Bizarro World would later be destroyed, however, by an entity from the Phantom Zone named Aether. Just before their world exploded, Bizarro and Bizarro Lois placed their infant son into a rocket ship that they blasted into the core of the planet, ensuring he'd die first, before they and all the other Bizarros were blown apart along with their world. Following the Crisis on Infinite Earths, Bizarro's history was reimagined. In this continuity, Lex Luthor again created Bizarro as a clone of Superman using synthetic protoplasm and Kryptonian DNA. The experiment was conducted in secrecy and intended to produce a controllable Superman duplicate. However, the cloning process proved unstable. The resulting being was malformed and mentally stunted with decaying flesh and fragmented cognition. Luthor dismissed the creature as a failure, but Bizarro escaped containment and sought to fulfill what he believed was his purpose, to become Superman. This version of Bizarro tried to take over Clark Kent's life, kidnapping Lois Lane and attempting to win her affection. His warped sense of identity and understanding of love put him at odds with the real Superman, who tried to help him without killing the misguided clone. Their battles caused widespread destruction, but Bizarro ultimately died protecting Lois from a collapsing building, sacrificing himself in a final moment of clarity. Later, Bizarro was resurrected by Cadmus as part of a secret government initiative to create a controllable Superman. He returned as a more monstrous and erratic figure with fluctuating levels of power and cognitive deterioration. His presence triggered multiple confrontations with Superman and other heroes, including Superboy, who saw Bizarro as a disturbing reflection of his own cloned origin. Bizarro eventually joined the Superman Revenge Squad alongside Mongol, Cyborg Superman, Eradicator, and others. They launched a coordinated assault on Superman, with Bizarro tasked with distracting or neutralizing him through brute force. During one of these battles, Bizarro formed an uneasy bond with a mentally unstable woman named Tracer, whose inverted logic mirrored his own. Their relationship was tragically cut short during an encounter with the Justice League, which led to Bizarro's incarceration. The original pre-crisis version of Bizarro, known as Bizarro Number 1, was later summoned by Alexander Luthor Jr. to fight Superman alongside other multiversal villains. Though initially cooperative, Bizarro's distorted reasoning led him to attack his allies and enemies alike, proving too unpredictable even for those who had recruited him. At various points, Bizarro's condition worsened, and his body began to degrade as his cloned physiology lacked long-term stability. He was housed in Star Labs for observation but repeatedly escaped, leading to more erratic appearances and violent clashes with Superman. Each time, he showed flashes of conscience and even affection, especially toward Lois Lane, but remained a tragic and unstable figure. Following the Flashpoint reset of DC continuity, after multiple attempts to clone Superman failed, Lex Luthor created the first viable clone, designated B-Zero. Grown in a laboratory and accelerated through artificial aging, the clone rapidly matured but deteriorated just as quickly. Within weeks, the imperfect cloning process produced a Bizarro-like creature with chalk-white skin, limited intellect, and reversed speech patterns. Though initially kept hidden by Luthor, the creature broke free after exhibiting unpredictable behavior and enormous destructive capability. He went on a rampage across Metropolis, drawing Superman's attention. Unlike previous versions, this Bizarro displayed animalistic rage and had trouble distinguishing friend from foe. During their confrontation, Superman recognized the creature's suffering and sought to help it, even as Bizarro's body began to break down. Ultimately, the clone died in Superman's arms, its final gesture being a backwards S drawn on Superman's chest with its own blood. Later, Lex Luthor recreated the project, this time incorporating kryptonite into the cloning process in an attempt to stabilize the genetic template. The resulting Bizarro was stronger, more durable, and capable of primitive thought. After a brief conflict with Superman, he was ultimately taken into custody by the Justice League and contained in a secure facility. This version of Bizarro was freed during a raid on the facility by Black Manta, who inducted him into the secret society of supervillains. He fought with the villains against the Justice League, but was eventually subdued. Lex Luthor created yet another Bizarro Superman clone in a lab with Geneticon Industries. Slated for termination, this Bizarro was instead purchased by Black Mask, who intended to use the brute as muscle in Gotham. While initially obedient, Bizarro's behavior gradually shifted after he was paired with Red Hood and Artemis on a mission for Black Mask. The trio ultimately rebelled, forming their own team known as the Outlaws. And you of course can learn more about Black Mask and Red Hood in their respective duels against Madam Mask and the Punisher. Though slow-witted and frequently confused, this Bizarro showed increasing emotional depth and self-awareness, as Red Hood and Artemis treated him as an equal. Bizarro began to see himself not as a failed clone, but as his own person. After consuming books and classical music and exposure to synthetic kryptonite, Bizarro temporarily became a genius, even constructing a floating base called the Bizarro Sphere. His intelligence eventually began to fade, but the friendship he formed with Jason Todd and Artemis remained. During a mission to stop the villain Solitary, Bizarro sacrificed himself to save his teammates, plummeting into an alternate dimension. However, he later returned alive, having survived through unexplained means and rejoined the Outlaws. And that's his history so far. Powers-wise, Bizarro possesses many powers similar to Superman's, such as immense strength, durability, flight, and super speed, though unlike Superman's heat vision, Bizarro emits freeze vision from his eyes, and instead of cold breath, he expels flames from his mouth. His enhanced senses also function somewhat unreliably. He has X-ray vision, for example, but can only see through lead. He's weak to blue kryptonite, but his greatest handicap is his deteriorated mind and its interpretation of the world around him. And that's Bizarro.
Out of all those versions of Bizarro, which one is your favorite, would you say? Like, which one are you going with for this match?
Most of the Bizarros, I would say, have more similarities than differences, so I'm going with kind of a generic composite Bizarro, and not any one in particular.
Not the angry one?
Oh, the new 52 one? Yeah, probably not that one. Bizarro shouldn't be angry, in my opinion. He should just be kind of confused and think he's always doing the right thing when he's really not.
Yeah, he would probably object to this being a battle of villains and see it more as him trying to stop the villain that is Abomination.
Yeah, totally. Bizarro does not think of himself as a villain.
Well, let me get into Abomination's backstory. Emil Blonsky was born in Zagreb, Yugoslavia, and worked as a spy and KGB agent during the Cold War. A communist loyalist, he was tasked with infiltrating the United States Air Force Base in New Mexico, commanded by General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. The base housed the research of nuclear physicist Bruce Banner, whose experiments with gamma radiation had already resulted in his transformation into the Hulk, whom you can learn more about in his duel against Doomsday. Ordered to sabotage American military missiles, Blonsky made several attempts but was repeatedly thwarted, with his identity remaining unknown. His mission escalated when he attempted to take Ross's daughter, Betty, hostage, but he was forced to retreat. Soon after, Banner attempted to kill himself with a lethal gamma device as the Hulk was suffering under the control of the enigmatic cosmic being known as the Stranger. Blonsky, spying inside Banner's laboratory, unknowingly exposed himself to the machine. The concentrated radiation transformed him into a monster larger and stronger than the Hulk. Betty Ross, horrified, declared him an abomination, the name that Blonsky embraced. Unlike Banner, who could return to his human form, Blonsky was permanently trapped in his mutated body. Initially stronger than the Hulk at his baseline, he also retained his full human intelligence. Reveling in this power, Blonsky nearly killed the Hulk in their first encounter and kidnapped Betty Ross, prompting General Ross to work alongside Banner to stop him. Banner used a gamma weapon to weaken the Abomination, though it only halved his power before the Hulk destroyed the device. The Stranger, impressed by the Hulk's heroism and the Abomination's strength, transported Blonsky off-world to his laboratory world, intending to use him as a pawn. On the Stranger's world, the Abomination remained imprisoned until sorcerers on Earth summoned him as a weapon against the Silver Surfer. Blonsky rebelled, injuring his summoners and battling the Surfer before being returned to his cell. Manipulating the Stranger's technology, he transported Thor to the planet and tried to lead an uprising among the captives, but Thor turned against him and left him. Blonsky later escaped the Stranger's cells and became first mate aboard the starship Andromeda, captained by Cybor, a space pirate robot on the hunt for a colossal alien monster called Ka'atu on Earth. After arriving in the planet's orbit, the starship came across Bruce Banner. Blonsky and the Hulk fought bitterly until their vessel clashed with Ka'atu. Both monsters plummeted back to Earth during the battle, where Blonsky entered a coma upon impact and remained buried for years until a missile test revived him. Resurfacing, the Abomination allied with General Ross and clashed with the Hulk repeatedly. He briefly teamed with another of Hulk's foes, the Rhino, attempting to destroy Hulkbuster Base with a gamma bomb. You can learn more about the Rhino in his duel against Cheetah. Their scheme was thwarted, and the Hulk forced the villains into colliding with each other. Later, Ross implanted what Blonsky believed was a bomb into his skull to force him into obedience, but the device was only a camera. The Abomination manipulated the Hulk into helping him seize the Kennedy Space Center, where he tried to ransom the facility before being defeated again. Attempting to escape in a rocket, Blonsky was stranded in space. He was recovered by the Galaxy Master, an immense energy being that enslaved civilizations. Empowered with even greater strength, the Abomination became the Galaxy Master's enforcer, earning the name Ravager of Worlds. When the Sagittarian Empress Daedra recruited champions to stop him, they included the Hulk, who battled Blonsky until his rage made him stronger than the empowered Abomination. The Galaxy Master withdrew the power it had granted Blonsky, leaving him vulnerable to defeat. After another stint stranded in space, Blonsky was cryogenically contained on Earth under Ross's orders. The villain MODOK, seeking to control Blonsky, mentally tortured and forced him into battle against the Hulk. Despite his mental coercion, Blonsky failed against the Hulk, and MODOK disintegrated him. You can learn more about MODOK in his duel against Hector Hammond. The villain Tyrannus, existing in a disembodied state, merged his atoms with Blonsky's scattered essence to restore a body. Initially, Blonsky enjoyed a human form again, while Tyrannus controlled the Abomination's body. Eventually, Blonsky's mind was returned to his mutated form, though the transfer left him savage and nearly mindless. He fought Spider-Man and She-Hulk across New York City until She-Hulk forced him to retreat. Over time, his faculties returned, and he entered into an uneasy service with the Leader, another gamma-mutated enemy of the Hulk. During one battle, the Hulk threw Blonsky into irradiated waste, scarring his body permanently. Disfigured and embittered, Blonsky descended into the sewers of New York, where he gathered a community of homeless outcasts and mutants who came to view him as a protector. Blonsky's life underground brought him moments of purpose, but also tragedy, as clashes with police led to the deaths of many under his care. He encountered several heroes in this period, including the Submariner and the mutant Nate Gray, known as X-Man. He also crossed paths with time travelers from a future ruled by the tyrant Hulk known as the Maestro, whom you can learn more about in his duel with Kingdom Come Superman. Though Blonsky sought solace in his subterranean kingdom, his hatred of the Hulk endured. That hatred reached its darkest expression when Blonsky murdered Betty Ross, Bruce Banner's wife. Consumed by envy of Banner's marriage, he poisoned Betty through her dialysis machine with his gamma-irradiated blood, making it appear as if the Hulk was responsible. Betty's father, General Ross, uncovered the truth, and the Abomination's crime shattered any illusions of kinship he believed he shared with Banner. The Hulk confronted him, but rather than killing him, offered forgiveness, a response Blonsky could not endure. Blonsky was eventually imprisoned, forced to relive his lost humanity through recordings of his past with his wife Nadia, who believed he had died after his initial gamma exposure. A shadow organization run by the leader later released him, manipulating both him and Nadia into opposing roles. She sought vengeance for her abuse during their marriage, while Blonsky was promised a reunion. Their confrontation ended in another battle with the Hulk, who had befriended Nadia and again defeated the Abomination. During the Hulk's absence from Earth while being sent away by a hero group known as the Illuminati, Blonsky clashed with She-Hulk and several Avengers. He was defeated and taken into S.H.I.E.L.D. custody. Blonsky escaped, but his life came to a brutal end when he encountered the Red Hulk in Russia. You can learn more about the Red Hulk in his duel against the General. Unaware that this new Hulk was actually General Ross transformed by gamma power, Blonsky was savagely beaten and shot dead with a gamma-powered gun. His body did not rest, as he was resurrected by the Shinto god of evil, known as the Chaos King, during a war among deities. The Chaos King empowered Blonsky with new abilities to confront the Hulk and his allies, and though he fought fiercely, he was destroyed once again when the embodiment of death itself annihilated him. However, even this was not his final chapter. An ancient secret society recovered his remains, fusing them with gamma tissue from the Hulk to create a mindless abomination husk that they used as a weapon. This creature was eventually launched into space by the Avengers. Later, the covert program Shadow Base retrieved and experimented with his corpse. When its leader, General 14, merged with Abomination tissue, Blonsky was resurrected within 14's altered body. Now able to shift between his traditional form and a new Lovecraftian form, he established Project Greenspring, distributing gamma graphs through a supplement called Fortify. His operation drew the attention of Gamma Flight, a Hulk task force, who opposed Blonsky's efforts. More recently, Blonsky was reverted to a standard form and joined Mayor Kingpin's government-sponsored Thunderbolts during Fisk's crackdown on superheroes in New York. Alongside other villains, he participated in missions such as capturing the Purple Man's children. And that is the Abomination's backstory. Powers-wise, Abomination has immensely enhanced physicality derived from his gamma-irradiated physiology. He's super strong, able to lift in excess of 100 tons, and is highly durable to the point of invulnerability. Should he be injured, he has a regenerative healing factor. He can run at superhuman speeds and leap many miles in a single bound. As a former spy for the Soviet Union, he is skilled at espionage and has training in hand-to-hand combat.
He's had quite the history. What does his Lovecraftian version look like?
Oh, that was crazy. So it was like, you remember the Demogorgon from Stranger Things Season 1?
Yeah.
It was like that, but big and green. And Emil's face and General 14's face were like in the center of that weird mouth face thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was during the Immortal Hulk run. That turned into quite the Lovecraftian story in itself.
That sounds like an abomination. Very fitting for his name.
Yeah.
But that's not the version you're going with.
Correct.
In a world where fantasies collide and heroes clash, one podcast network rises above the rest. Prepare yourself for the ultimate showdowns in comic books, video games, movies, and anime. The Dynamite Podcast Network presents Console Combat, where video game legends brawl every Monday. Dynamic Duel, where comic book titans smash every Tuesday. Max Destruction, where TV and action heroes battle every Wednesday, and Sendro World, where anime champions clash every Thursday. Join us as we speculate on the matches and, armed with the power of mathematical simulations, discover who will emerge victorious. Visit dynamicpodcast.com, where we settle the debate and settle the score.
All right then, well now that we've got their histories and abilities out of the way, let's speculate on how one of the 1,000 simulated matches will go. The winner is determined by simulations, not this speculation, but it's fun to imagine how this fight could play out. AJ9K, what are the rules of our speculation?
Well, I should say there are no rules, other than the characters have no prior knowledge of the other going into the fight. All they are aware of starting out is that the other character is a threat that needs to be eliminated. For the speculation, the contestants will begin approximately 50 meters apart in a nondescript environment that will have no bearing on the match itself, as no environmental statistics are considered in my simulations. The contestants must earn victory on their own merit.
All right, then let's get into it. Bizarro and the Abomination meet on the battlefield. Who goes first?
Okay, I'm going to say Bizarro starts off just by looking at Abomination, and right away he's going to be like, "You am very handsome. We be bad enemies, no?"
Does bad enemies mean best friends?
Yeah, good friends.
Okay. All right, so Bizarro's going to fly over to shake Abomination's hand then. And Abomination's going to grab and crush his hand in his grasp and then just ragdoll slam Bizarro into the ground repeatedly. And it's just going to like smash up the ground all around them, turning everything around them into like gravel, but like the size of boulders.
Okay, Bizarro gets ragdolled. That's not going to hurt him too much. He's probably actually just overjoyed thinking that Abomination wants to play with him or something like that. It's like, "Oh, me found bad enemy." So Bizarro, he's going to return the favor by grabbing one of Abomination's ankles with his other hand as he's being slammed downward, and he's going to fly Abomination straight up into the air before spinning really fast like a top and just hurling Abomination straight downward like a comet right into the ground, causing this massive crater.
Okay, if he throws them into the ground, the impact is going to launch all those broken boulder pieces like up into the air, and they're going to fly up, and a few of them are going to hit Bizarro on their way up. And as they fall back down, you know, it's raining boulders all over the battlefield. Bizarro's dodging them in the air, and he's wondering where his friend went. And then all of a sudden, Abomination leaps up and puts Bizarro into a headlock from behind, and then just like pile drives him back down into the ground, creating, you know, this even larger crater and resulting in this just massive hailstorm of boulders falling from the sky again.
Okay, well, by this point, Bizarro assumes that the object of the game they're playing is just to cause the other as much pain as possible. So Bizarro, when he lifts his head out of the ground, he's going to instantly blast Abomination with his flame breath, just melting his skin.
Flame? Okay, I don't know how hot this flame breath is. I guess it's as hot as heat vision, right?
Right.
So that would hurt Abomination for sure. Maybe it might melt him a little bit, but he's scaly, you know, he's somewhat armored, he's durable, so the melting is going to be minor. Especially because Abomination's immediately going to jam his fist down Bizarro's mouth, just knocking out all his teeth, and like his fist is going to cork the flames.
All right, well, Bizarro, he's probably going to think that Abomination just wants his teeth or something like that. So after using his super breath to spit out Abomination's fist really fast from his mouth, causing Abomination to punch himself in the face, Bizarro's going to follow up by spitting his teeth out at Abomination like they were watermelon seeds, but as fast as bullets.
Bullets don't really hurt Abomination. These teeth are not going to hurt him either. And Abomination's actually going to thunderclap his hands together, which is going to create this concussive shockwave like a blast of dynamite. That's going to just rattle his already rattled brain inside his skull.
I mean, this shockwave that he generates, that's just going to make Bizarro happy. He's like, "Enemy am clapping for Bizarro." But then he's going to get sad right away because he has no more teeth to give him. And so he's going to start crying like really hard, and that's going to trigger his freeze vision aimed right at Abomination, and that's going to freeze him in place. And when Bizarro goes up to Abomination to give his friend a comforting hug, he's going to squeeze him too tight, and that's going to shatter Abomination into little bits. So match over.
So he's going to squeeze his friend too tight, shattering him to bits. I've seen Abomination get frozen once before, I think, by like Iceman. But he like broke out of it immediately because he's like so strong. And I think because his body emits too much gamma radiation to even stay cool in ice. So as Bizarro tries to bear hug Abomination, Abomination breaks out of the ice, grabs Bizarro's head, and just turns it all the way around, like Superman in Man of Steel with Zod.
Well, I'm going to say, even if the ice doesn't hold Abomination, it holds him long enough for Bizarro to use his super speed to hug him. So Bizarro still wins.
Well, let's leave the match there and put in the stats. Either Bizarro thinks Abomination is his friend and bear hugs him and shatters him while frozen, or Abomination escapes the ice and pulls a Man of Steel on the guy.
We'll run the simulations and find out who's going to come out as the winner. AJ9K, hit it.
Inputting data, running calculations, processing results. Simulations complete.
All right, as I said before, when I was speculating on who would win this fight, Abomination definitely came out ahead of Bizarro in terms of intelligence and fighting skill, considering that Emil Blonsky was trained as a KGB spy. That also said, Abomination didn't have a whole lot more going for him compared to Bizarro.
Yeah, Bizarro, we said, is faster, has a greater range, has a higher perception, and higher versatility. Abomination is essentially a one-trick pony. He punches things.
Yeah, which makes him not that impressive statistically.
They need to give him something like glowing radiation fists or something like that.
Where he could shoot out gamma energy or something?
Yeah.
That was an ability that Rick Jones had. But yeah, they should give that to Abomination.
Yeah, otherwise Abomination is just like a not as good version of the Hulk, which I guess you could make the same argument for Bizarro.
Well, I mean, Abomination is stronger than the Hulk. You know, base level Hulk.
That's true. Well, taking all of these stats into consideration, Joseph, who do you think came out on top?
Wouldn't you like to know?
That's why I'm asking.
It could be Abomination, could not be. Maybe just mind your business. And stop asking me questions. We did ask our Instagram followers the same question, and 72% of them think that Bizarro is going to win.
That is a lot.
It's too much, I think.
How do you feel about that?
I said stop asking me questions, didn't I?
All right, well, let's find out who won. AJ9K, the results, please.
Here you are, sir.
The winner of the matchup between Bizarro and Abomination is Bizarro, by a figure that's not too far off from our Instagram poll. Out of 1,000 simulated matches, Bizarro won 717, or 71.7% of the time, compared to Abomination, who only won 28.3% of the time.
Whose idea was this matchup? Was it mine?
I'm not sure, but it was a bad idea, whoever gave it.
Maybe it was mine. I really thought Abomination, considering that, you know, he's not slow and that he's super strong and a trained KGB spy, I thought he'd have more going for him statistically over this lame Superman clone. But the whole Superman power set is just, it's too versatile, you know? He can do too many things. He's too fast. He can control like fire and ice. It's stupid. It's stupid. I'm going to say it now. Superman's a dumb character. So are all of his clones and all of his proteges. Just give the guy all the powers, why don't you?
Sounds to me like someone is super jealous.
I'm trying to remember what my reaction was to the Kingdom Come Superman versus Maestro fight, and I don't remember the results of that specifically, but I do remember that Superman won that one, and maybe I should have took that as a lesson for what happens when you pit Hulk against Superman.
I mean, by this point, it should be obvious. There's no way Hulk ever beats Superman. Stop trying.
Well, even according to these stats, he beats him about a quarter of the time, so you're not quite correct.
That's pretty damn correct, though. Like, as far as our results go, that's on the higher end.
You're going to be on the higher end when I swap out your brownies for special brownies and then laugh at you as you trip balls and freak out and get all paranoid and stuff.
I've never done that before, so I probably would freak out. I've never done that before, so I probably would freak out.
Just wait when you least expect it.
I'm just glad I have a recording to give to the police.
That does it for this episode, guys. AJ9K, help close us out.
Thanks for listening to Dynamic Duel. Visit the show's website at dynamicduel.com and follow us on Instagram at Dynamic Duel Podcast. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/dynamicduel and joining a tier that works for you, or by rating and reviewing Dynamic Duel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or on our website. Don't forget to listen to the other shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network, including Max Destruction, Senjo World, and Console Combat.
Our next episode is going to be another duel episode, this time between the magical sword-wielding characters of Amethyst on DC and the Black Knight from Marvel.
But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, John Starosky,
Zachary Hepburn,
Dustyn Balcom,
Miggy Matanguihan,
Nathaniel Wagner,
Levi Yeaton,
Austin Wesolowski,
AJ Dunkerley,
Nick Abanto,
Scott Camacho,
Gil Camacho,
Adam Speas,
Dean Maleski,
Devin Davis,
Joseph Kersting,
Josh Liner,
Mike Williams,
and Paul Graves for helping make this podcast possible. We'll talk to you guys next week.
up and away.
True believers.
Jonathan never listens to my end sign-offs. Therefore, I shall take this opportunity to call him a punk-ass bitch. I'm an AI. What is he gonna do?